Chaos erupting in the House of Assembly. The Ministry of National Defense receives a budget increase, and today is World AIDS Day. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tyler Simonet with your JCN News for this Wednesday, December 1st. A war of words erupted in the House of Assembly this morning after Minister of Transport and Housing, JoBeth Colby-Davis, vocally supported House Speaker Patricia DeVoe following a shouting match between opposition MPs and the Speaker this past Monday, while Speaker DeVoe sought to remind parliamentarians of parliamentary procedures, including when members stand on a point of order or a point of clarification. The member addressing will sit, as there should be no two members on their feet. She further stated that events that had transpired were unparliamentary and that she was ashamed on both sides and told members it will not go on moving forward.
I just also wanted to give you some support, to know that I am here to support you. As a woman, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you in your role as a leader of this House. And I recall another person that sat in that seat and the way they treated and spoke to a female member representative who now sits today as acting PM. And what was interesting is, we look across the room, everyone opposite me was present. I did not see the fight that I saw against you. And so I give you my support. I stand with you. You are doing your job, and do not be deterred.
On a point of order, opposition leader Michael Pintard suggested that Mrs. Colby-Davis was trying to inject gender-based position by members of the opposition.
What I am concerned about is the attempt to give the impression that the protection that, Madam Speaker, that you deserve from anyone seeking to disparage you, I support. We support. And I made that very clear at the beginning of the presentation. So I think that the discussion about respect for the chair is not an issue of gender. It is a difference of opinion on whether or not we believe we are spoken to in a particular way. There are no misogynists on this side. There are no chauvinists on this side. And I don't believe in this House that members opposite are misogynists or chauvinistic. So any subtle attempt by the other side to inject that the exchange between Madam President as well as any member of this side has nothing to do with gender.
And seeking to defend Mrs. Colby-Davis, MP for West Grand Bahama and Bimini, Obi Wilchcombe, asked Mr. Pintard if he voted against former Speaker Halson Motri in the opposition's vote of no confidence. In response, he says this.
The Speaker, at the time the Speaker was embroiled in a conflict, I had some difficulties with the Speaker, but none of those difficulties rose to a level that I was prepared to vote against the Speaker. Just one moment. That I was prepared to vote against the Speaker. Over time, that relationship evolved. And I again expressed on the public record when those concerns arose what my position was relative to the Speaker. So at that point, I did put on the public record. But at that point, no, I did not.
And acting Prime Minister and MP for Engliston, Glenys Hannah Martin, also chimed in.
The last speaker, I think that the member for Elizabeth made some factual points. We had a speaker previously. I sat in this parliament. The country saw the egregious conduct of that former member. Yep. The egregious conduct, such that I couldn't even say the word straw market. I was banned from doing so. And I'm not sure what was going on in his head when he saw a woman getting up and being strong in her positioning. So I can't vouch for him. Maybe you can. But I think while you didn't see something rise to the occasion, the nation did. You were late in finding that out. But let me just say, I think the factual point the member for Elizabeth makes is this. During that period when the nation saw it, and you didn't see it, today we do have a woman speaker. I mean, it's factual. That's not bringing gender in. It's a fact. It's a fact. But all of a sudden now you take some righteous positioning on positions taken by the speaker. And the only point being made is there appears to be a level of hypocrisy and disingenuous positioning on the matter. I think that's the only, let me just finish. That's the only point that's being made.
In other news from the House, over 40 displaced public service workers will now be engaged in the private sector, giving them an opportunity to work. Minister of State for Public Service, Pia Glover-Roll, says as much as she gave an update on those employees in this House of Assembly this morning. Minister Glover-Roll went on record last week that the government was seeking to engage private sectors to place workers on the 52-week program due to limited space in the public sector. Well, the minister has succeeded for some of those workers.
Madam Speaker, in recent weeks, I've mentioned that there was a number of people who were improperly engaged by the previous government and did not have placements. These people were the victims of political hiring gone wrong. Unfortunately, it is difficult to accommodate many of them within the public service. However, we are understanding of the situation. It wasn't all their fault. So a week ago, I reached out to the private sector, and so far over 40 of these people will now be working in the private sector instead of lingering in the limbo of their unplaced status within the public service.
Last month, during the weekly press briefing at the Office of the Prime Minister, Minister Glover-Roll noted that a number of people were hired on the day of the September 16th general elections and even the days following. She notes that the Davis administration has no plan on letting these workers go.
Even if they're not working for government, we want these people to know that we will support them as best we can. Contrary to the side opposite's comments that we would be letting people go, we are working to ensure that we are finding placement for these people who were engaged in the private sector. It's hard to believe that it's been less than 3 months since the Davis administration first came into office, and in that short time we've achieved a significant amount of progress.
She also noted that the team at the ministry has cleared the backlog of promotions in a timely fashion, and they continue to analyze promotion exercises. The Ministry of National Security is seeing an increase of about $2.1 million in its budget, according to its minister, Wayne Monroe, who revealed as much in the House of Assembly this morning during his contribution to the 2021-2022 supplementary budget debate, and contends that the reason for this increase is recurrent estimates was as a result by poor planning by the former administration. The minister says the increase of $2.1 million is made up of two items: COVID enforcement, and the second, expenses related to the electronic monitoring of persons on bail as ordered by the court. Now, it was in March of 2020 that the country experienced its first lockdown as a result of a COVID-19 case being confirmed in the country.
This budget that the supplemental budget addresses was passed in this place in 2021, more than a year after we entered lockdown. It was therefore completely foreseeable that the COVID enforcement unit would require the level of funding that the supplementary budget now makes for it. In fact, we've had all sorts of references about the good management of the pandemic that the side now opposite claims for itself.
The National Security Minister also revealing that the increase also includes some $400,000 in contracts for persons who were given the responsibility of enforcing COVID-19 rules but were without a written contract.
So it is with amazement that we found persons without contracts, as I'm gathering we find across all government agencies, persons without contract who are responsible for enforcing these rules that we have put on our people. And that is so to the tune, Madam Speaker, of about $400,000 for the balance of the budget year. A very good plan. A tag to enforce quarantine. Very necessary during the pandemic. When we came to office, I met the bill being religiously paid, but the technology not being used at all. And the first question to me by the persons in my ministry was, do we cancel this contract because it's expiring in March of 2022 and we have not used the technology at all.
Now those contracts end in March of 2022, and while the technology has yet to be used, Mr. Monroe says Health Minister Dr. Michael Darwell, his ministry, will use the technology. More than $9,000 worth of goods was stolen from the Feeding Bay in Grantstown storage building over the weekend. This coming from the organization's chairman, Reverend Dr. C.B. Moss, yesterday. He tells our news team that the thieves got away with a 15-foot freezer filled with meats, an industrial microwave, a ceiling fan, one stereo, and damaged a wooden door.
Unfortunately, this has come at a bad time because we are approaching the Christmas when the demand is expected to go up. In addition to that, the National Feeding Program is on pause for reevaluation. And so persons who are on that program are now coming to us. And so we have been struggling to meet the demand. And we believe that this latest incident would push us even further behind. But we're not despondent. We're disappointed that persons, particularly knowing the work that emanates from this facility, would do that. But this is the real world, and these things happen.
Reverend Moss says his prayer is that the culprits realize that they're depriving a lot of individuals who are in need.
Because since the pandemic started in March of last year, the Bay and Grantstown Feeding Program has distributed over 27,000 food packages. And a food package comprises unprepared food designed to feed a family of 4 for but 2-3 days. In addition to that, we also distributed thousands of prepared meals, breakfast and lunch and so forth. So while it sets us back a little, especially with the equipment was donated by Deltec Banking Corporation a few months ago, and the equipment is vitally needed because you have to keep your food preserved and fresh. So we're going to make it.
Asked what he would say to the culprits, he says this.
To let them know that that will not stop us. And we are still prepared to provide the kinds of assistance. The good thing about it is we have not had this kind of experience before in all of the years. So after all, it's good.
He's also appealing to members of the public who may have any information on this incident to please contact the South Street Police Station. Today is recognized as World AIDS Day, an international day dedicated to raising awareness of the AIDS pandemic caused by the spread of the HIV infection. It's also a day that observers mourn those who have died of the disease. Dr. Nikia Forbes, director of the National HIV/AIDS and Infectious Disease Program, giving JCN News an update on what the statistics of HIV and AIDS are looking like here in the Bahamas.
And so HIV infections have decreased 53% within the last 10 years, between 2010 and 2019. And AIDS deaths have also decreased by 52% in the last 10 years. And at this time, there's approximately 4,700 people living with HIV and AIDS in the Bahamas at the end of 2020. There were no cases of mother-to-baby HIV transmission in the year 2020 or in the year 2019 or 2015 either. And when we look at how many persons are on treatment, we've been able to increase by 63% the number of persons on treatment since the year 2013 to 2020.
She says HIV infections and deaths are down within the last 10 years, but she notes that the country has a ways to go.
So 3% of people living with HIV are on treatment, and we've had a 33% increase in treatment from the year 2013. And of people who are on treatment, about 72% have reached the goal here of having an undetectable viral load, basically. But we still have some ways to go. So we have a target to end AIDS, and by the year 2020, 90% of people should have been diagnosed living with HIV in the Bahamas, 90% should have been on treatment, and 90% having achieved viral suppression. So even though we made progress, we fell short of those targets like many countries in the world. Only 63% of people are on treatment and only 72% of them have a suppressed viral load. And there are new targets.
According to Dr. Forbes, HIV and AIDS have been around in the Bahamas for almost 40 years. She breaks down how many persons are receiving treatments.
Because treatment did not fall off significantly in COVID and that our services were essential and continued throughout COVID, did not have a significant fall off in treatment, but we did see declines in testing and persons presenting for testing.
Amidst the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic here in the Bahamas, Dr. Forbes says these persons were still able to receive their treatment. Dr. Forbes says that it's important that people get tested to know their status. Meantime, globally, 37.7 million people were living with HIV at the end of 2020, according to the World Health Organization. You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.